about you, but this summer has been about re-examining so many things that I accepted as true without questions about the blessings that could flow in my life, specifically about money and abundance. And I've been reminded this summer to kind of replace old beliefs with spiritual truth. And I know that you all have been on that journey with me. So I want to share some of the influential beliefs about money that are commonly absorbed in our early years. And many of us spend so much time working to release these very common things and try to accept a higher truth. And I bet you can relate to at least some of them. One is that money is a reward for good behavior. In other words, money flow is conditional. Number two, money is something lucky people have or get. In other words, it's not in your control. Number three, money's temporary, and it can be lost or stolen in ways beyond our control. In other words, money can be dangerous. Another one, having money means you're greedy. In other words, I don't ever want to be seen as greedy. No, thank you. How about this one? I can't be happy without money, so the only way to be happy is to buy it. And those are just a few of them. All summer long, we've been uncovering different things that we learned. And most of us were subtly taught that money is not a good thing. And sometimes the teaching wasn't even really that subtle, right? So specifically, it was sinful to want money. And it was assumed that people who had money had done something questionable to get it, or had dared to rise above the crowd to greedily earn more money through education or relocation or accepting opportunities to grow. But in doing so, they had to lose other things of value. So many of us judged harshly those who went into college to study like finance or investing or even medicine, actually, assuming that they were just choosing those for the higher potential salaries, while we felt kind of more open-hearted for those who pursued less lucrative careers like social work or teaching. Am I wrong? No, right? It was modeled for us to question those with money, not to trust the rich. They were not like us. It was modeled for us to criticize groups of people with money, like the elite or the country club folk or the people who live like that, the wasteful people who live in big houses and drive fancy cars. Am I right? These kinds of ideas were illustrated for us in the stories around us as well. They didn't just come from our parents or even our neighbors. They came at us from everywhere. Most of us can remember that rich characters in shows were often portrayed as less than intelligent, like trust fund people, sort of like the millionaire and his wife on Gilligan's Island, right? Mr. Howard and Ms. Lovey, or they were portrayed as mafia kind of criminals, Wall Street, greedy tycoons. We could all name so many negative ways that the rich have been portrayed in our culture, such as being portrayed as wasteful, unscrupulous, predatory characters. Certainly not the kind of people we wanted to be unless we were bad-hearted like they were. And as we've gone through life, we have drawn to us real examples of bad rich people. Billionaires who hoard their money, executives who exploit their employees, and politicians who use their power to illegally take resources, and so on. We always notice that I can't turn pages. Here's the deal. We always notice examples that uphold our own beliefs. It's the way the universe works. Basically, we're taught to believe rich equals bad. And at the same time we were being fed those messages, we were also fed alternative messages about being poor or being less fortunate. A connection was drawn, wasn't it, between being poor and goodness or compassionate behavior and selfless heroism and godliness. We were encouraged and encouraged others in any experience of lack by the phrases hardworking or resourceful or able to make something out of nothing, and other messages that implied higher moral character and work ethic than wicked rich people. And the media also furthered this belief about poorness by creating characters on the screens like families with little money being more loving and generous and good, as opposed to the richer characters in the same story. Think Tiny Tim's family in the Scrooge, more loving, generous, less fortunate family who loved more than mean old rich Ebenezer Scrooge, right? And the examples are also pointed out in real life too, like Mother Teresa used her pennies to feed people in the streets of Calcutta, or the priest who created a nonprofit to benefit the homeless community around him. Again, we draw to ourselves examples of our beliefs being lived out. Basically, poor equals virtuous. And I gave modern characters in my examples, right, of how rich people and poor people are portrayed, but there are also ancient characters who give us these same messages, many of them featured in the religions of the world, because then we get into religious beliefs about poverty being more godly and wealth having negative consequences. Religion goes even further by encouraging vows of poverty for those who want to be devout and seen or revered as holy. So what is a vow of poverty? My talk title is A Vow of Abundance, because I want us to understand what a vow of poverty really is. A vow of poverty is basically a personal promise that you will disavow wealth and possessions in exchange for religious favor or holy consideration or inclusion in a certain specially blessed group of people. And these vows are made and lived publicly sometimes, or they can be made and lived privately, kind of without fanfare, such as in Catholicism, the vow of poverty is one of the evangelical counsels, along with chastity and obedience. And these evangelical counsels are the religious orders that some priests and others vow to live by: poverty, chastity, obedience. And some interpretations even exist that extends this holy call of poverty, chastity, and obedience to all Christians. Several religious orders like the Augustinians, the Jesuits, and the Franciscans, among others, require their members to take a vow of poverty to be a part of that group. And it's not just in Christianity. In the Islamic world, there is no vow of poverty in the wider Islamic teaching, but there's a faction of it called Sufism, and that does include a degree of detachment from possessions, and there's a wider teaching of being mindful of the poor. So we find these very same lessons in the Muslim faith for the most devout. Buddhist monks and nuns also take a vow of poverty, which includes renouncing personal ownership of anything and relying on the community for their livelihood and their sustenance. Buddha himself explored living in austerity during his period when he was seeking enlightenment. So nearly all religions, all religious paths have devout followers who take a vow of poverty. Monks, nuns, priests, those kinds of religious figures own nothing and live on donations from others as charitable support. The holiest of church members promise to stay poor, a vow of poverty. And we absorb these beliefs subconsciously. Being poor is more spiritual and good than being rich and selfish. Am I right? Right? We all can relate to that. And on the flip side, we're exposed to religious figures who are vilified for their wealth and deemed unholy. So we know that televangelists and other megachurch pastors are exposed quite often to have wildly, conspicuously opulent lives, and the wider world despises them. Whether those facts are true about each individual one, it is a bias that all religious leaders feel coming from others at times. So separating beliefs about money and religion takes many of us quite a lot of soul searching and inner exploration to free ourselves from limiting thought patterns. We want to be good people, don't we? We want to be good people. And we get confused when we separate the concept of goodness from the concept of abundance. Whether our family lineage has a history of a vow of poverty, almost all of our families were influenced by religious overtones about being poor as being more righteous than being rich. All of these ideas are living in all of us subconsciously as part of the human race consciousness. I talk about human race consciousness, meaning the beliefs that the whole human race basically holds as one. And we either get to agree with race consciousness or we get to claim our own thinking. Because we have an unspoken human race created rule that says something like, spiritual people, holy people, righteous people, good people should not be prosperous and abundant. Now, you might roll your eyes and think that that vow of poverty is ridiculous, or you may say that's a good rule on the path to spiritual enlightenment. But either way, you have a relationship with the concept of a vow of poverty. But the problem is, these unexplored beliefs show up in our mind with thoughts of things like this. It's wrong to ask for a raise. It makes me look greedy or less like a good soul. It makes me uncomfortable when the center asks for donations because money and God should always be kept separate, illustrating this underlying belief that money is somehow wrong, especially in a holy setting. How about this? The instant criticism you may feel inside about mega church pastors earning millions of dollars from their followers while feeling perfectly comfortable with Taylor Swift earning millions of dollars from hers. Think about that for a second. That all reveals some connection in your belief system about money and lack and who should want it or have it, and what are appropriate ways to live in abundance, as we all are spiritually based people. But here's the thing. If you have beliefs about money being for bad people, and you are trying to up-level your identity as a good soul, you may be feeling conflicted about our Summer of Blessings program that we just finished, and opening yourself up to blessings of all kinds. And those feelings may be worth paying attention to and considering releasing, or at least having awareness of them. So the question becomes, have you unconsciously taken a vow of poverty and you don't even know it? Do you feel somehow embarrassed or ashamed of the abundance in your life? Do these ideas make you shy away from learning about these topics and growing your level of flow and blessings flowing in your world? See, when I was growing up, my dad was a pastor of a small fundamentalist church, and my family often struggled with lack of resources of all kinds. And he would often quote scriptures like Luke 6:20 that says, I don't think I have a slide, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God." I was directly taught that God favored poor people and hated the rich. And I'm sure that his way of trying to make us feel better about not having the things we wanted or needed was all based in that religious message of God loves the poor. And those thought seeds were firmly planted in my mind. And I realized that when I came to this kind of spirituality, I had a lot of work to do to set myself free from them. It was hard not to judge abundance teachings as flat out wrong. So I was encouraged to explore and heal and release those types of beliefs and thoughts when I was early in classes like our summer one, took classes just like the one we just got done teaching. But they were also a part of the transformation that ministerial school brought to me. I was specifically invited to release any vow of poverty, known or unknown, that I may have taken at some point in my life. I learned clearly that a vow of poverty is not a part of the Science of Mind teaching and not a part of New Thought teachings overall. But so many spiritual leaders in our organization continue to live as if they are. So I want to share with you some of the wisdom of other spiritual teachers, both old and new, on this topic. So we talked a little bit in class about Emma Curtis Hopkins. Emma Curtis Hopkins was the teacher of both the founder of the Centers for Spiritual Living, or Religious Science, Science of Mind, what we teach, and the founder of Unity, the Fillmores. And here's what she said about receiving our good. And we talked about this quote in class. There is a good for me, I think there it is. There is a good for me and I ought to have it, is the very first conscious statement you ought to make. That's Emma Curtis Hopkins. So she's unequivocally encouraging all of us to claim the good in life that is there to have. And Holmes and the Fillmores picked up this truth from Emma Curtis Hopkins and taught it even more directly as they wrote the textbooks and developed the beliefs we teach in Science of Mind and in Unity. Here's what Ernest Holmes had to say about poverty versus abundance. From the standpoint of the spiritual man, disease or woman, disease or in between, disease, poverty, unhappiness, and misery are neither person, place, or thing. Basically, he's saying that none of these things have real power and permanence in our lives unless we choose to empower them. He also writes, if we think poverty and lack, we are certainly creating them and causing them to be projected into our experience. If we think abundance, then the law will as easily and as willingly create abundance for us. To assert our individuality is to rise above the law of averages. The law of averages is what the human race consciousness plays by. Okay? So do you want your life to be average when you can choose to be greater than average? Holmes invites you to choose wisely, but realize it is a choice. He also writes, the divine cannot lack for anything, and we should not lack for anything that makes life worthwhile here on earth. We read an entire book this summer called Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth. If you didn't read it, I invite you to read it. One of the most foremost teachers in the Unity movement was Eric Butterworth. This book made very clear that prosperity is spiritual well-being. Here is what Unity's Butterworth said on this topic. The truly prosperous person is a fully functioning person. When he used to teach, he would speak about poverty being a sin or missing the mark that higher consciousness can help you hit. He goes on to say, let go of the old belief in the grace of poverty and the subconscious sense of guilt in having things. Claim your entitlement by affirming, I am a child of the universe, richly endowed with the fullness of all good. Eric Butterworth. I also want to quote megachurch pastor Joel Osteen, because Joel Osteen sort of straddles the line between Christianity and New Thought teaching with his messages of positivity and blessings. And here's what Joel Osteen has to say about poverty and wealth. He says, it's God's will for you to live in prosperity instead of poverty. It's God's will for you to pay your bills and not be in debt. Osteen's whole ministry is about accepting the blessings that God wants to give every single person. He understands it's an inside job of self-image too, which I teach all the time. It's all about self-image, self-esteem. He writes, if you develop an image of success, health, abundance, joy, peace, happiness, nothing on earth will be able to hold these things from you. Notice this is a Christian teacher sharing the same message that Ernest Holmes and Eric Butterworth affirmed. And by the way, I so enjoy listening to Joel Osteen. He is firmly Christian, but he is also firmly teaching the spiritual truth that we teach here. If you ever can't catch our lessons, catch one by Joel Osteen, see what you think. But what about some more influential teachers of our day? Here's what Oprah Winfrey has to say about creating our lives of meaning and purpose, which includes abundance. And actually, Oprah is a model of someone who defies our early messages about wealthy people being bad. So I think her words are powerful as we heal and release our own vows of poverty. Oprah happened to be the commencement speaker at my daughter's graduation from Agnes Scott College in 2017. And here's what she said that day. She said, the biggest reward is not financial benefits, though it's really good. You can get a lot of great shoes. Those of you who have a lot of shoes know having a closet full of shoes doesn't fill up your life. Living a life of substance can. Substance through your service. She is saying that have your shoes and enjoy them, but live a life of meaning and substance. In other words, wealth doesn't keep you from being a good person contributing to the world. She also says having a lot of money does not automatically make you a successful person. What you want is money and meaning. You want your work to be meaningful because meaning is what brings the real richness to your life. What you really want is to be surrounded by people you trust and treasure and by people who cherish you. That's when you're really rich. And she anchors it in our way of teaching when she says this is what I know for sure. You don't get what you wish for. You don't even get what you hope for. You get what you believe. It's important that we look at what kind of vows that we believe in. Let's conclude with the great teacher Wayne Dyer. He says, I am worthy of attracting unlimited abundance and prosperity into my life, regardless of what life experiences have gone before me. The bottom line is that it is time to release our life experiences that may have arisen out of an unknown vow of poverty. So together, we as a community, we don't block the universal energy flow that flows around here. We do not block the flow of love energy or appreciation energy that I've talked about, or kindness energy, or the energy that shows up as financial blessings. We have not taken a vow of poverty of any kind. And I personally stand open to receive and flow back out into the world all types of energy, money, support, kindness, love, compassion, vitality, joy, acceptance, peace. Bring it on and let me flow it back out. When I came to spirituality, I was impoverished on so many levels. My emotional bank account was empty. In 2001, I had left behind my entire social structure in Atlanta, so my social bank was tapped. I didn't fully appreciate life, and life didn't fully bless me in return. I was doing okay financially, but releasing my inner unknown vow of poverty helped me shift my beliefs about abundance and wealth as it was relating to my personal experience as a spiritually growing person. So to conclude our summer shower of blessings, I invite you to take these vows of abundance with me as we heal ourselves completely from any unconscious vows of poverty we may have picked up or absorbed along the way. It's time to let that shit go. So we are going to take a vow of abundance, and I have copies for you to take home with you. I want you to read these with me, including this. Are we ready? These vows of abundance release any attachment I have to any known or unknown vow of poverty in my past. The first one, I vow to love whoever shows up in my life with as much compassion as I can find in that moment. I take a vow of abundance of social wealth. Number two, I vow to flow my time to things that give me joy. I invite the experiences of time wealth into my life and feel the abundance of time and freedom. Number 3, I vow to open my channels of financial flow through the practice of generosity, understanding God is my source. I take a vow of abundance of financial wealth. Number 4, I vow to continue to love and grow as long as I live. I take a vow of abundance of mental wealth energy as I expand my knowledge and wisdom through curiosity. I vow to cherish my human body and flow energy and vitality through it abundantly as I take a vow of physical wealth. And last, I vow to stay connected to God as the source of all good in my life and invite abundance of every kind to my experience this day and always. So as the offering baskets go around, I will pass out these for you to take home and read them often. Take a vow of abundance.